Hi you guys, welcome to my channel. My name's Allie Wilkins. It's your first time here. I'm so happy that you came across my channel, and I hope you love this video. And if you're coming back, I'm so happy that you're here with me again. So today we're going to talk about the concept of Anthropos, which is one of Mary Magdalene's main teachings and something that I think is so important for us today to really understand and to apply and embody in our lives. So I'm going to be explaining that today. And I first just want to say, if you feel called to Mary Magdalene, if you enjoy her frequency, she has so many different faces. A lot of times people find her when they're in deep spaces of suffering, or they're moving through great, like remembering a big trauma in their life. She comes to us a lot of times first through the energy of grief, and she really helps us with the healing of the heart. But she has so many different faces. And so this conversation around Anthropos is much bigger than just heart healing. This is really reflecting her absolute mastery as a high priestess and as the feminine Christ, the equal of Jesus, of Yeshua. And she deserves the credit. I have chills everywhere. She deserves the credit for that, genuinely. So this is something that her and Jesus both taught, but it also really reflects, like, going all the way back to Lemuria. There are some things that tie in there, and this is something that I've kind of uncovered by myself because I'm obsessed with both of these concepts and energies. So we're going to tie that together in this video. But I do want to say, if you're interested in Mary Magdalene, I have two different pieces of work that will really help you to deepen your connection with her, one on a more like quick basis, and the other in a deeper inquiry, deeper exploration. So the first one is called Invoking Mary Magdalene. This is a 2-hour masterclass I have. It's $30. And this is going to save you so many hours of learning about her on your own. I've done so much research, reading dozens of books about her, taking like so many courses about Mary Magdalene. So I've kind of put all of that into a presentation and I led this a couple of years ago, I think now. But it really showcases who was Mary Magdalene as a woman. What do we know about her? In history and biblically, what is said about her? And then who is Mary Magdalene with the concept of the mystery of the Magdalene? And who are the Watchtower women? Magdalene is actually not just one woman. This is actually a title. Magdalene being the sovereign woman. So yeah, in that masterclass, I teach you all these different components about her. And then we do a shamanic journey moving into the realm of the Magdalene and her priestesses. And it's just such a beautiful Akashic journey. That's actually one of my favorite ones I've ever led. And I say that all the time because, like, so many of my journeys are really good. But this one really is truly so beautiful. And it really allows you to feel her frequency and the lack of hierarchy that I think is so prevalent when we're talking about high religious figures, right? Or deities. Sometimes there's this natural hierarchy that's formed. So anyway, it's a really beautiful experience, 2 hours. So it's not a whole super long thing. And it's $33. And then if you want to go much deeper into the concept of Magdalene as high priestess, which is, we're going to be talking about that a little bit today with this concept. I have a course called The Priestess Returns. This is a much deeper exploration. It has 4 different modules, really 5, that talk about the fall of the priestess. It talks about who the priestesses were, what that means to be a priestess, and how the priestesses left the planet basically over the last 3,000 years. And how we can start to embody that energy again through the 4 different faces of the Magdalene. And so each of those are a module on their own. There's so much included in that course. So I'll put the links for both of those below if you want to go deeper. And then I also have one-on-one mentorship. And I'm opening actually a temple of the Magdalene, where we're going to be working with her for 8 weeks. This is a mixture of Akashic Records work, a mixture of mentorship, as I've been working with the goddess frequency and with the Magdalene frequency for several years now, but really supporting you in holding that frequency and working with her in a very deep, integrated way. So I also have that on my website, and I'll put the link for that in the comments if you want to look at that and explore one-on-one work with me. But let's get into the concept for today. So Anthropos, what this means, this is a Greek word that essentially means someone is both fully divine and fully human. And one of the things that the church initially did was separate both of those. You are either human or you are divine. You cannot be both, right? And so we see this with what I was talking about, this like religious pedastaling of a lot of these deities, or a lot of the people in religion who we see as being higher than. And so this was done with Jesus, absolutely, saying that he was celibate, saying that he was just sort of like holier than thou. And that wasn't from Jesus. That wasn't his energy. That was what was said about him. And it created this separation that you are either human or you are divine. So let's go back like 12,000 years now to Lemuria, because it just blows my mind how connected this stuff is. And how important this is for us today, and how this is truly the epitome of the spiritual path. So going back to Lemuria. So I'll just say quickly, if you don't know what Lemuria is, you've probably heard of Atlantis. Atlantis was a civilization, and I'm going to guesstimate with these time frames because there's a large range of when these civilizations actually could have happened. But they would have been around the Golden Age, which would have been about 12 to 20,000 years ago. So Lemuria came before Atlantis. Atlantis was more around the time of the fall of consciousness. But that was much closer to us in our age now, that we're in the time that we're in now. So Lemuria came before that. There was a little bit of like overlap between both of those civilizations, but Lemuria was really just pure. It's like Eden consciousness, heaven on earth consciousness. And they say that Lemuria was in the Pacific. So it would have been this large land that spanned between like Indonesia and the Philippines to Hawaii, the Hawaiian Islands. So I could talk about this all day. What's important here about Lemuria? Okay. So the Lemurians had a mission to bring spirituality into the human body. They were extraordinarily spiritually advanced. They mostly communicated through telepathy. They weren't talking a whole lot. Like, they didn't have diseases. They were living for hundreds of years. Their understanding of energy was phenomenal. It was extremely high. The problem that they had is that their job really was to bring this high consciousness, this high spiritual awareness, their very high frequency, into the human body. And the human body, they were kind of like, ew, the human body is so dense, and like it's so limiting, and it's so constricting. And so they sort of failed in one of their missions, that was to bring that energy, to be able to hold that in the human body. So that is Anthropos, that you are both fully human and fully divine. So they really struggled with this, and they weren't able to actually do that. They were kind of out of their body all the time. They're floating around in the astrals, like, and a lot of you guys who might be watching this might relate to this. I know that I do. As soon as I started learning how to venture off into other dimensions and other realms, mostly through the Akashic Records, but also just with my own specific gifting, I wanted to be in those spaces all the time. It was more fun than being in the human body. And so, but then I noticed what happened is, the more time I spent in those places and the less time I spent like really in my physical human body, my body would react. I would not feel grounded. And you can see this with people sometimes who are super, super spiritual, and they're like completely disconnected from the earth realm. They have a hard time getting things done. They're not grounded. They're super airy fairy. This is when we don't have a sense of groundedness. And if you're off in these other planes all the time, you will not be grounded. And that is extremely dangerous for the body. And I talk about this with my students all the time. I teach an Akashic Records training called Becoming the Oracle. And so I'm teaching them literally how to go into these other dimensions. And every single session I harp on, you have to stay grounded in the body. And so you have to return to the body and make sure that you're supporting it, because a lot of times we see this with psychics or with mediums, that they get super sick. They take on diseases from other people because they don't understand really how to protect the physical body as they're traveling through these different dimensions. So anywho, the point I was really wanting to make with that is that the Lemurians had a mission to bring spirituality into the human body. They weren't really able to do that. And so then as time went on, and I teach about the astrological wheel of time, the astrological ages, and I'm going to do a video about this in the next couple of weeks because I talk about it so much. Like I need to be able to reference you guys to a video. So I'm just going to draw this with my hands. Okay, so there's a circle here. At the top, this is the golden age. This is about 12 to 20,000 years ago. Okay, we're moving down the circle. This is around the time of the flood that we know as Noah's Ark. And then moving down here, this is around the time that okay, so right about here in my imaginary circle is Jesus's time. Up here would be like Moses. And so now we are right at the golden age is up here. We're at the polar opposite. We are actually in the darkest age that there has been. And so what's happening is as we move through time, each of the ages, these are the zodiac signs basically. So right now we're in the age of well, we're really transitioning from the age of Pisces, which was Jesus's sort of 2,600 year vibe. He was the very beginning of that. Pisces, now we're moving into Aquarius. And so as we move up here, we're moving back into the next golden age. So we're raising in consciousness dramatically for the next like 20,000 years. No big deal. So Lemuria would have been right around the top up here in the golden age. Atlantis would have been right here as there's like a fallen consciousness, and you can imagine this just being in the circle, like there's a fall here, right? That's not necessarily exactly it, but there's starting to be a fallen consciousness, and Atlanteans were really, really interested in high spirituality and spiritual advancements. They were all about technology, and we're mirroring this time period very significantly right now. With the technological advances. And if you think about it, even in this circle imagery that I'm doing with my fingers, up here is Atlantis. We're gonna be mirroring this, like if there was a straight line here, right? That we're gonna be approaching that time very, very soon, where we're gonna have choice points as a society. So anywho, I'm about to go way off on a different topic. So the Atlanteans were more in their physical body, and they were kind of like heady. They were very intellectual, and they wanted to physically understand more things. They were able to bring a little bit more of spirituality in through the body. They were more anchored through their body, but they also, because they were around at the time of the fall of consciousness, especially towards the end, their power and greed dynamics took over. So it wasn't with the same morals or ethical energy that the Lemurians would have had. So now here we are. Well, let's go back to Mary Magdalene's time. Okay, so 2,000 years ago, she was teaching about the concept of Anthropos, fully divine and fully human, both in one. And so speed forward 2,000 years, the church did a lot of damage in terms of our connection to the divine. And I might ruffle some feathers with this, probably already have, but this might ruffle your feathers, that the church separated us, I would say very purposely, from having a real connection with God. Because what did the church do? They said they took us from a time period, and you can learn more about this. I have a whole masterclass called Return to Goddess. It's free. You absolutely should download it. It's so educational. Again, like hundreds of hours of my own study went into this. Like, please watch it. It's so good. We went from a time period where people had altars and had statues of the goddess in their house, and they were praying on their own. They had a very deep connection to the land, to their higher realms on their own. Then the church comes in and says, hey, the only right way to have a connection with the divine is to come to church every Sunday. You have to follow all of our rules. That's actually the only way that God's going to love you, if you follow our rules. And they created a separation. We didn't think anymore that through programming, they forced us basically to believe that we didn't have our own connection to the divine, our own connection to God. So they created a mass separation. And this is around the time period of Mary Magdalene and Jesus, a couple hundred years after that, really more significantly. But that idea started before their time, or really around their time frame. So this created a massive schism, because then we just saw ourselves as being human, and the church basically was saying that being human was a sin, and that women in general were sinners because they were tempting men, even though that for sure was not the vibe back then. Women didn't have the power was completely stripped. So anywho, again, I could go on a whole other rant about that. So during the last 2000 years, there's been a complete, just like a rip, like a plug. We've been unplugged from our connection from the divine. This is just starting to come back, where we're seeing, oh, I don't need an intermediary to connect to God. Like in the last 100 years, that's not very long. Oh, I don't need a priest to connect me to God. I can do that by myself. I actually don't need the priest in any capacity. No shade to priests. Well, maybe some shade. No shade to people who are like, there are like ministers or priests. My grandfather was actually a minister. Like, it's not that that's inherently bad. It's that we don't need to rely on that to connect to God. So now, coming full spectrum, we're starting to have that memory and that remembrance of how to connect to God on our own. Whatever God means to you, universe, source, spirit, goddess, God can go by a million different names, right? It doesn't matter. It's whatever you believe in. It's the higher realm. And so we understand, okay, I can have my own connection to this. But what I think our learning space, our learning curve is in this moment, is not pedestalizing the divine more than we pedestalize the human experience. This is very challenging to do sometimes. And like I was saying, if you're someone with a lot of spiritual gifts or energetic gifts, like you can travel dimensions and you can do all these cool things, you probably find it more fun to be out in the ethers, out traveling to other dimensions, right? And sometimes there is this, like, especially in the spiritual community, there can be this like condescending attitude towards the human experience, or towards, like, you can even look at like anger or rage. Like if you're feeling a whole lot, or I've actually had some of my friends talk to me about this, so I'm going to share this. This is a little bit more personal. I am a very open person. I'm not worried necessarily what people are going to think about me. Like, of course I would like people to like me, but I am not going to change who I am or my opinions to get someone to like me. So with my friends, I just tell them everything that I'm feeling. Like, I don't feel like I need to hide certain things because I should be ashamed of it. And I've had multiple people tell me, like, Allie, this is so refreshing to hear you just speak so openly about your genuine feelings. You know, sometimes this is around like jealousy or comparison or things like that, that like you might not want people to know about, that you experience that thing. This is a part of being human. So sometimes we can, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is here. We can like demonize some of these aspects of something, like these things that we might want to talk about, like jealousy or feeling like obsessive or feeling anxious. That's getting a lot more press, so to say. So you get what I'm saying, though. These things that you might not want like everybody in the world to know about you. These are aspects of being human. And so how can we stop pretending that those are bad, and that like, oh, well, when I'm in my holiest element, like that's actually way better. Like, who's to say that? Okay, let me back up. So I think as souls, we come into the human experience literally wanting to experience everything. We want to experience all of the facets of being human. But then when we're in the human body and we forget that that's why we came here, we're like, oh, well, these parts of myself I shouldn't show anyone, and I should just be like holy all the time and be like pure and pristine and like so forgiving and super compassionate. And like, that's wonderful and great. But the real feelings of being human and being in a physical body are also great. And they also teach us so much. So I think that our work within this today is really around embracing both as perfection, embracing both of them without pedestalizing either one, the divine. Like, no one's really pedestalizing like being in a dense human body, right? And so catching ourselves when we're in those moments of like thinking that being and like enshrouded in white light is better than when we're in the underworld raging Also, just a shout out, because I've been seeing all my masterclasses. I also have another free masterclass called what's it called? The Womb of like Primordial Darkness or something like that. And that's about the journey in the underworld. And there's also an Akashic journey with that, but also a teaching in the beginning about sort of the teachings of the goddess of the underworld. Because this is something that this is a cyclical part of being human and being a woman as well. So, or just feminine energy. So there, I also have that on my website if you want to download that. Like I said, it's free, and very, very helpful and interesting. Anywho, so yeah, Anthropos is just the concept of being fully human and fully divine, and allowing both of those to live within ourselves as one without separation. So I think that's all I really want to say about that today. Please let me know in the comments how you received this. If you want to add anything to the conversation, if you have any like revelations or you've had any downloads or anything around this, I'd love, love, love to read them. And I know other people would enjoy reading them as well. So please share that in the comments. And thank you so much for watching. Like I said, if you want to learn more about Mary Magdalene specifically, there's 2 different ways that you can access on my website. The first is a 2-hour masterclass, an Akashic journey called Invoking Mary Magdalene. And then I have the Priestess Returns, which was a 4-week course, but it was really intense for 4 weeks. So this is something you could actually do over a much longer period of time. But it's really, really, really informative. And it's going to teach you, it's going to showcase Magdalene as High Priestess and the 4 different faces of the Magdalene that help you to really embody her energy. But also it teaches a lot about the fall of the priestesses, what their roles were, how to embody the priestess energy today. So that's like I love that course. It's really, really powerful. And now I'm just offering it self-study. So if you'd like, you can access that on my website as well. And then I have a bunch of master classes and free gifts on my website if you ever want to download more. And I also offer Akashic record readings to go more deeply into your soul blueprint and look at what's present for you in this moment, as well as teaching Akashic records training if you want to actually learn how to read the records, which is like a vital skill for light workers today, and I think for all humans. Just such a valuable asset. That's why I started teaching the training and teaching people how to read the records. And then I also have one-on-one mentorship. And I'm opening actually a temple of the Magdalene, where we're going to be working with her for 8 weeks. This is a mixture of Akashic Records work, a mixture of mentorship, as I've been working with the goddess frequency and with the Magdalene frequency for several years now, but really supporting you in holding that frequency and working with her in a very deep, integrated way. So I also have that on my website, and I'll put the link for that in the comments if you want to look at that and explore one-on-one work with me. So anyways, that is all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like it, leave a comment, share it, subscribe if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate that so that more people can find this information without having to read 75 million books like I have. That's the whole purpose of my channel, so that I can help people and spread this very important information. So I would love if you can support that in any way. At minimum, like the video, please. That really helps. So, okay, that's all. I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Bye.